Another approach on dyes is to use a natural product. You can buy them commercially. A product called logwood dye works real well. For this, you're going to have to boil water, mix it with the water, and let that simmer for about an hour before you add your traps. Or you can use a natural product like walnuts, which are available in lots of parts of Illinois. If you're going to do that, you need to put on some gloves, because it will stain your hands just like it stains your traps. What you want to do is just take the outside of the walnut husk. A lot of times you'll have these little white bugs in there. That's not going to bother anything. You can store these, dry them out and store them and use them next year if you want to, and you're good to go. The process for dyeing your traps with either logwood dye or walnuts is essentially the same. We're going to add one or the other to the water, bring the water up to a rolling boil, and then turn it down to a simmer and let it simmer for 40 minutes to an hour before we start dyeing traps. We don't want to put our traps in there and have it too hot. By too hot, I mean a rolling boil where you're going to leave your traps in there for a long time. What it'll do is it'll affect the temper on the steel and make your springs weaker, and we don't want to do that. We'll leave the traps in there and simmer for about a half an hour. You can take them out and check them in between and make sure your dye is turning out the way you want it. We added the walnut hulls to the water here. There's not an exact recipe for that. I generally, when I'm picking up walnuts, I'll fill up about a 5-gallon bucket and use that. We can add water, but we can't add more walnut hulls after we've used them all, so we'll see how this goes. We're ready to start dyeing our traps. One of the things we want to make sure we do is put a nail or a piece of wire in between the jaws so that they're held open and the dye gets around all the surfaces of the jaws. Our traps have been in the dye for about a half an hour. We're going to take a look at them and see how they're coming along. Try to get some of those walnut hulls off of there. It's looking pretty good. We have a nice even coating of dye on there. Nice dark coating that should last for the season. Take a look at some of these other ones. See how they're doing. Okay, that trap still needs to soak a little bit. You can tell the color isn't quite uniform throughout the whole trap. We haven't gotten a good solid coating on there. So we're going to put it back in and let it simmer for a little bit longer. Let the water evaporate off of there. That's a pretty nice job. We have a nice uniform color on the trap. I think that'll work for us for the next season.